there, my name is Dr. Katie Saint, and this video is on holding your kids accountable and why that's important. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and then we will jump right in. Alrighty. So when it comes to holding your kids accountable, this is so critical for their development. If we don't do this, it'll be difficult for them to be successful in school. It will be difficult for them to get a job someday. The chances of behavior problems, yelling, screaming, crying, hitting, things like that are really high when we don't have good follow through and accountability. So another risk that you run into is that their tolerance for non-preferred activities or jobs, tasks will be really low. So if you set up from a young age, once the expectations are set, you follow through. This is going to help your child be successful in every environment that they're in. It's super, super important. And it helps them cope with life. A lot of times parents are coming from a really loving perspective when they don't hold their kids accountable. They maybe feel bad for them or they feel bad for the situation that happened. And so they just see that their kid is struggling and they want that hurt to go away. And so they give in to them. They give their child what they want in that moment. But the problem with that is that steals the opportunity for your child to learn a coping skill, for your child to learn that they're capable of going through that situation. And so next time they're in that situation, they're going to believe that they're not capable. And so that's where we as parents can lovingly walk alongside them and show them that they are capable and that they can do great things, and we're going to help them. So how we word things is really important. As a parent, if we're wanting to focus on follow through and holding our kids accountable, a good place to start is just to think about how we word things. When I started out being a line therapist, I so often would word things as a question. Would you like to do your homework? Would you like to sit with me at the table? And the problem with wording things as a question is sometimes I didn't mean it as an optional thing. Sometimes it was a direction that I was giving them that they needed to follow through with. But if I word it as a question and then I tell them, too bad you have to do it anyway, that kind of breaks trust and it's misleading. So be mindful of how you word things. If it's a direction that you want to follow through with, word it as a direction. If it's actually a choice, word it as a question. This simple change in your wording can help your child be less irritated at you, be less frustrated, and make it more likely that they're going to listen. Next, give clear instructions. So sometimes parents get frustrated when their kids don't listen, but that's because the directions weren't super clear. So if I tell my child, go clean your room, he's going to come back in 5 minutes and he's going to say, it's clean, it's all good, because by his standards, it was clean. But if I tell him, okay, I want you to go up to your room and I want you to clean the floor completely so that it's clean enough that you can vacuum it, that is a more specific instruction. He knows more clearly what my expectations are then. So we want to be really specific. Clean up all your dirty clothes. Make sure all your clothes are folded and put away. Make your bed. There should be no toys on the floor. We want to give these really great descriptive directions so it's really clear what we're asking. With a lot of our kiddos, they're visual learners. So if you make a visual for them of what you want them to do, that can be super helpful too. And again, remember, when we're giving instructions, we're following through. Don't bother telling them to do something if you are not prepared to follow through. So next one is taking data on your follow through. So you would think, I have a doctorate in this field. I am totally awesome at this. No, I'm not. In my own life, it's hard because you're multitasking, you're pulled in multiple directions. So follow through can be really, really challenging. I would like you guys to try just take data on yourself for a week. How often do you tell your child to do something and then you forget to follow through where they did not complete what you asked them? And I want you to count if you ask them more than once. So say you want them to be done playing video games. Hey Susie, it's time to be done with video games. They don't listen. So you ask them again. Hey Susie, time to be done. Still didn't listen. So you ask them a third time, a fourth time. I want you to even count those because every time we give our child a direction and we don't follow through, we are training their brain. Their brain is unconsciously recording, I don't have to listen. When she tells me to do something, nothing bad happens when I don't listen or follow through. So I can keep doing what I want to do because what I want to do is way more fun. Versus if the child learns that you are really consistent when mom or when dad tells me to do something, they follow through every time. So I might as well just get it done and get it over with so I can get back to the fun stuff. So go ahead and take data for a week. See how you do. See how you rate yourself with your consistency. Sometimes just the task of taking data on yourself will make you more aware of when you're doing it, and it can drastically improve your consistency. So let's look at the functions of behavior. So there is so much science and so much research behind why behavior happens. And part of why I'm passionate about behavior analysis is because the science runs so deep that they consider it lawful. In the same way that gravity is lawful, we can count on gravity happening. We can count on behavior responding in the same way every time. So there's 4 functions of behavior that all behaviors under the sun fall under, and escape is one of the main 4. So what that means is humans will do a behavior to escape something. So sometimes us adults will use Netflix to escape our stress or our problems. We'll procrastinate, we'll do all sorts of things. Maybe there's a tough conversation you're supposed to have with your spouse and you just don't have the emotional energy to do it. So you bring up other stuff, you talk about anything else other than that. That's escape behavior. In our kiddos, though, it can look a little different. Sometimes it's violence, sometimes it's crying, sometimes it's running away, sometimes it's just plain ignoring you. And so our children will continue with this escape behavior as long as it works for them. If it's effective, it will continue. So what makes effective escape behavior? Well, if they don't have to do the thing they don't want to do, they win. Their brain will record, when I did this, it worked. I didn't have to do that non-preferred thing. I kept being able to do what I want to do, so I'm going to keep doing that. So our brain, no matter who you are, no matter what age you are, is constantly recording what works for us and what doesn't. And we will do what works for us more often. But if something consistently doesn't work for us, like I tell you to do something and you try to ignore me, but I follow through and make sure it happens, your brain will record avoiding following those directions don't work. So I'm just going to do it. Your consistency is so key in making this happen. If you are not consistent with follow through, we can't get around the laws of behavior that tell us a child simply won't listen if there's no accountability there. So the next function of behavior is tangible. So we call it tangible, but what we're really referring to is somebody wants something. It could be an object, it could be an activity. And so they're told no, or they're told to wait, and it results in a meltdown. They're crying, they're upset. The function of this behavior is they are doing these things to get what they want. And so we want to teach our kids, if you ask and use your words, if you use your iPad, if you sign to us, these things are effective for getting you what you want. We don't want our kiddos to learn when you cry, when you scream, when you hit, then you get what you want. So that's where that accountability comes back in. So we're going to teach our kids, I'm sorry, you hit and you screamed and you bit, therefore you cannot have a cookie. I know giving you a cookie right now would calm you down and it would be more peaceful, but I do not want you to learn that that is how you get a cookie. That will not lead to long-term happiness for you. That will lead to you having more meltdowns. So instead, I'm going to choose to make you wait. I'm going to need you to have safe behavior. I'm going to need you to have safe words. Or if you can't use your words, I'm going to have you point or whatever form of communication that you can do. But when you can be safe and ask for that thing, that's when I'm going to say yes. But if you're ever violent or if you're ever aggressive in how you're asking, I'm going to make sure that's a no, because I know that the science of behavior tells us it will continue to occur as long as it is effective. If violence gets me what I want, I'm going to keep doing it. So keep this in mind. This is so important. So often parents are tempted to give in, because when you give in to a child who's having a meltdown because they want something like their iPad or some yummy food, they instantly stop. So it's super tempting for parents. I give them what they want, and then they're happy, they're calm. So this worked, the tantrum's over, I can get back to what I was doing. Super tempting. Problem is, it signs you up for more tantrums later. It teaches the child that dysregulation gets them what they want, and their long-term happiness is way lower because they're going to get dysregulated more often. So the next one is attention. A child will have problem behavior to get a reaction out of people or get attention from people. So this is the same thing. We want to be consistent with, if you want my attention, violence is not the way to get it. Screaming, crying, hitting, that's not how you're going to get my attention. But keep in mind, if you want to not make their violence work for these functions, we need to make the good behaviors effective. We need to give them attention when they ask for it in an appropriate way as often as possible, because we want them to learn, when I use my words, when I use my communication tools, that works really good. But when I'm violent, that does not work as good. So then their brain is going to record, this is more effective, so I'm going to do this. So lastly is automatic reinforcement. So that is the last of the 4 functions. And so this is when people do things because it feels good internally. We see this so much with our clients with stimming and different things like that. This one's a little bit harder because we can't block the function of automatic reinforcement. But this one is something where we try to shape it from the perspective of, it's okay. We all do this. It is 100% okay for all humans to have behaviors that are automatic reinforcement, but we all just need to be held accountable with when and where to do it. So I love singing to music and jamming out and things like that. Is it appropriate for me to do that in the middle of a team meeting? No, it's not. So I need to learn when and where that behavior is appropriate. So the same is true with stimming and sensory behaviors. We want to teach people how to meet those needs when they're appropriate, how to do it, when to do it, where to do it, all of those things so that they can be successful in every environment that they're in. So let's look at accommodations versus holding your child accountable. So, accommodations are fantastic and definitely needed sometimes, but sometimes people don't fade them when they could. And this is where we're disabling our children. So, if a child has an accommodation, they're dependent on that accommodation and they're dependent on adults facilitating this, taking care of this. So, long term, we want our children dependent on those things as little as possible. If we can fade accommodations off, our child is going to be more independent and our child's going to be more successful. So, this is something to be mindful of. So often, we come from a loving place. We want to give accommodations. We want to do things for people because we don't want our child to struggle. We don't want them to suffer in any way. But if we do that, they are not learning skills. They are not getting more independent, which means they are going to be held back more and more in life. So evaluate the accommodations that you're giving. Maybe they're good and they're needed at this time, and that is 100% okay. But maybe there's some of them that could be faded out. And if that's the case, look at what your plan might look like for that and how you could set up your child to be successful without it. Talk to your therapy team. Maybe you guys could make a plan together on how to fade some of those accommodations out. So the next topic is failure. So this is something, as a mother, I never, ever, ever want to see my kids fail. I don't want to see your kids fail. It's heartbreaking. You don't want to see them go through that. But the thing is, we need to let our kids fail. And if we don't, they can develop a fear of failure that will actually make them even more of a failure. So it's the weirdest thing about our brains with failure. When we experience failure, we actually learn that failure is okay and it's not that scary. When we're protected from it, when we don't experience it, it becomes a bigger and bigger and bigger monster. So then we view it as this ginormous thing that we can't overcome. So then we don't try things. We don't push ourselves out of our comfort zone. We're not willing to take risks because the fear of failure is so ginormous that we are not going to go anywhere near it. Versus if we let our kids take risks, if we let our kids try things and have small controlled failures, they're going to build up their confidence and they're going to learn, hey, it's okay. I can take risks. If I fail, I'll recover. If I fail, I'll make a plan B. And so you'll see your kid actually thrive because now they have the tools to handle failure. There's so many inspiring stories when we look at some of the giants of the world who are just insanely successful. When they open up about the failures that they've gone through, it's enormous. So if we don't have a tolerance for failure, we won't be successful. So that means as parents, as therapists, we have to let that happen. So to conclude, as a parent, it is our job to hold our kids accountable, to have high standards, to be consistent, to be mindful of how often we're following through. If we get good at this, our kids are going to do so much better in life. We all carry this parent guilt of a million things that we could do to be better parents. But I can tell you this one thing is going to make a difference in every area of their life. If you want support with this, please reach out to your therapy team. We would love to help. This is something that will make such a big impact on your child's goals. So let us know how we can support you. Thanks for listening, guys. I hope this was helpful.